contributions to the county will be hard to replace, but as this cycle goes, she has left us in a very good spot. So we thank her for her many years of service. She also served on the WJA, Wisconsin Jails Association Board, and Wisconsin County WCA Board, and Jail Administrators Board. So these boards, it's not only serving this county, but recognized throughout the state. So she's been a representative for this county to many other counties. So she's been a leader in that field, and we appreciate and thank everything she has done for us. So on behalf of the command staff behind me, as well as the citizens of the county, to Chris Anderson, this plaque is presented to you in a grateful appreciation for your 29 and a half years of dedicated service to the citizens of St. Croix County. Thank you, Captain Anderson. Much appreciated. Do you have your speech prepared?
Thank you, everyone. It's been a long time. And I don't like emotions, so I'm sorry. There are no emotions and corrections, but today there might be. I'm almost done. Tomorrow I'll show up for a little bit and then I'm out. But no, I've learned a lot here. There's, like I said in the last time I was up at this podium, there are good days and bad days, and I'll carry both with me into my next chapter in life, and I'm very much looking forward to my new challenges and new opportunities to continue to both grow myself as well as to help other counties in the field of corrections specifically. So I might be done here, but I'm not done. I got things to do. So I am leaving in a good place, professionally and personally, so that's always good when you can leave on your own accord and not be told to leave. So I appreciate everyone's willingness to work with my stubborn personality. I realize it's there, and it's only because I am so passionate about what I do and what I'm trying to get to for results. So I thank all of you, and continue the good work here, and the wheels will keep on spinning.
Thank you.
Sheriff, before we go to the next nice item, I think on behalf of the whole committee, thank you very much, Captain Anderson, for your 29 years of service.
29 and a half.
29 and a half. And we've certainly been the beneficiary of all your thoughtfulness, and the sheriffs and others, members of your staff, when we take our annual jail inspection, and you've been always very open to this committee. We appreciate that. I've joined you for many meetings of the CJCC and the criminal subcommittee of that, and you always contribute to those meetings, and we really will appreciate that, and we'll miss you. So thank you for all your service. It's been very much appreciated. I'll call on the sheriff again.
Yeah, and her wealth of knowledge too. I just, and her ability, as you said, those jail inspections, those jail tours. I fear that maybe her next career will be coming back to inspect the jail as a jail inspector, and what I anticipate her saying is, whose idea was this? And pushing it off. Rolling into now, the next era that we come into is our new jail captain, Joe Kormanek. So Joe comes to us, he started in 2018, but he came to us also from Minnesota DOC, so he's had years of correctional experience and knowledge, institutional knowledge, prior to even coming here. But then once here, he really showed up at a time when, as some of you remember, those days of struggles with staffing. But Joe kind of had what we were looking for, not only as a corrections floor person. I think he was still on probation when we put him into a sergeant role because of his leadership, because of his knowledge, and because of the way he managed not only inmates but staff. And he had that respect. He's kind of rolled through with that as well, continuing to grow. has been digging into some of the captain's duties, contracts, paperwork, working with Heather often as we look for advice from Corp Counsel on some of our more tricky details. But Joe has been there with that, and he was clearly the choice for us and leading us into the next generation here for the county. So we are looking for many good years with Joe. Part of that also is the domino effect. While we still have Scott Rhodey as a lieutenant, we have now just promoted as of yesterday. I think you signed the paperwork, right? Rick Westfall is coming from a sergeant position into Joe's Joe's lieutenant position. So we have our group in place, our new command staff in place, and we're filling those sergeant positions those were left open. So we're building our team, and I am very pleased with the teams that I've been very fortunate to have. So this is a new team that we're going to get. So I know you probably didn't prepare a lot of speech, but oh, he's ready. So
All right.
Thank you. All right. I humbly accept this position to serve this county, and I appreciate the opportunity. It's going to be working with the board members here and getting more involved in the grand scheme of things here besides just the jail. I look forward to working with the sheriff, the chief deputy, to get this jail back to where we want to be, continue the good work that Captain Anderson has given to the county. And I would also like to just lead with the humility of now my new accepted role, and I'm grateful for it. So thank you very much for the opportunity. So.
If I could jump in for just 1 second, if my memory doesn't fail me, and it might, I think Joe's already served this committee very well at our last jail inspection when I believe Chief Deputy Standard and Joe, while we were having a bite to eat after the inspection, dashed out of the room to solve a problem. They were really moving fast. And they came back and it had been solved. So thank you for that assistance then, Joe. We look forward to working with you. Sheriff.
yeah, that's one thing I'm really pleased with this command group is, as you saw firsthand and just mentioned, that there isn't much moss growing on these guys. They're constantly moving, and we take great pride in that we are a very active, even admin group of, while we get a lot of work done behind the desk, that we're not always stuck behind the desk. So I appreciate that from the group as well. So.
And I also wanted to note, we do have the entire command staff with us today, which is a real honor for us. And we appreciate all that you folks do all the time, and to show your support for, I'll say Chris now, and our new jail captain. Thank you all for being with us today.
Yes.
Sheriff, you may still be up. We're going to head to the storm report, and I think Natasha might be joining you for that.
Yes, I am. Natasha's going to come up. She's put some good work into this, and I think as you'll see through all this, some very good information, but also a real good wipe of the brow of us dodging a very bad situation. So Holly will turn it over to Natasha.
Okay. All right. Good morning. I'm just going to provide a brief description of the storm, and then I'm going to show a couple clips of some of the storm damage that we captured that day. So the afternoon of May 15th, a very strong low-pressure storm moved into our county quickly and grew in scale and became severe. We had 4 sirens that went off that afternoon, starting with they were activated and starting with a tornado watch, and then we had a severe weather warning, followed by 2 separate tornado warnings. And that all happened between 12:47 p.m. and 3:26 p.m. The Emergency Communications Center received multiple calls from citizens of possible tornado activity, starting with wall clouds and then the rotating funnel clouds. And the Sheriff's Office deputies, State Patrol, local municipalities, law enforcement, and other first responders helped confirm some of those sightings that we saw that afternoon. The townships that were affected included Warren, Richmond, Erin Prairie, Hammond, and Stanton. And the reports of the sightings were given to the National Weather Service to follow up. We did not have any injuries that day. However, we had lots of power lines, debris across roads. Some of the damage was to private properties. I think we had about 5, and it was more outbuildings and their yards. Anything was more like cosmetic to their homes, but nothing severe. No other reports of public infrastructure damage. After the storms passed, we were fortunate enough to have one of the sheriff's office investigators, and Terry Anderson, head out right away with a drone and capture some of the footage. In Wisconsin, people clean up very, very fast from storms. So we are very grateful that we have that asset and that resource through the sheriff's office to go out and do damage assessment quickly. It allows us to get really good views. It's safe, it's fast, and otherwise not able to capture a lot of the damage that we would want. So very grateful for that. I'm going to pull up, it's already up a little bit, but you can see, I'll just show some of the stats of what was confirmed. So the Emergency Management and the National Weather Service did go out the next day to review some of the damage even after the drone footage. And the National Weather Service does their own thing. They do a complete analysis of the storm. The drone footage helped, but if I click on, so these are all the tornadoes that happened through Twin Cities, Chanhassen in our area, but I'll go to Richmond. And if you look, here's the stats on the tornadoes. So I'll move this over a little bit. So the time, it was one tornado on the ground from 3:26 until 3:34 p.m. It was rated as an EF2 with peak winds at 120 miles per hour. The track length was 4.1 miles with a max width of 120 yards. So that's what was confirmed that day. And then I'm going to show you just a few clips of our drone footage. I'm going to skim through it because some of them are long, so I'm going to skip parts and I'll just show you some of the. So there's a few homes. This one had probably the most damage to an outbuilding. You can see it right here, and I'm going to move my mouse over where you can see some disturbance in the ground. That's kind of where the tornado tracked, right through here. I'm going to kind of fast forward a little bit. You can see it just kind of missed that house. Got their outbuilding. I'm going to move forward. Okay, so looking past that outbuilding with the debris damage, you can see where the tornado kept tracking. And back here, I'm going to get to another footage, but there's a farm back here that it continued to move past. So we'll go to the next footage. All right, let's close that one out. All right, this is a separate home. Just thought I'd highlight how it missed this house too, but kind of hit. I'll move forward so you can see. You can see back here where it came through the field. Kind of went right through here, past this house, and kept going. But way back here where my mouse is you can see it start tracking back through that field, coming through. Some trees down in that yard, playground equipment, and I'm going to go to the last video. All right, so this is where that outbuilding is that had that most damage, and now we're moving towards that farm. I'm going to go fast forward just a little bit. So there's that farm that it kept going towards. There's the farm. So you can see after it went through that farm area, it then kept going this way, tracking towards another house, but missed this house over here and tracked right past it. I'm going to fast forward. What's that? Yeah, so we did get some close-up footage of that silo. I'm going to go towards that. You'll see a little bit more here. So as it moved, the silo did move off its foundation a little bit. So some damage there. Okay, so continuing on past that farm, you can see the disturbance of where it kept going back that way. So really, the best place for a tornado to hit. We were very fortunate. Had this moved a little bit more into the Hammond development or New Richmond, our response and recovery would look quite different. But we, I'm going to close that out for you guys, so. Here's your mouse back. We're very fortunate, and we did have some questions and concerns come up after the fact. We did have some schools reach out. Captain Tim Kufis reached out to me about a school looking for some safety resources and for assistance with some emergency plans around the busing, because that was something that Terry had said in all his years had not had that perfect time of when the school was getting released with a storm like that. So that brought up some unique challenges for some of the schools that they may have not addressed or seen before in the past. So just whether or not to release kids or hold them back. So, and then again with buses, just looking for some guidance on emergency plans with what do they do in the event that they're caught out in a tornado. So we were able to provide some resources through the National Weather Service and kind of best practices and safety tips that we were able to give some of the schools. So that was about it. Does anyone have any questions? Concerns?
Questions for Natasha?
Yeah.
I just had one or two.
Sure.
Very general ones. And you just touched on it as you talked about the schools and other communications issues. But fortunately, this is probably our first tornado in several years. And that was my next question, was how many of these incidents do we have? But assuming it was our first in several years, did we have some good lessons learned from this that we can take away for the future? You mentioned a couple already. Would there be any other things that came to our attention as a result of the storm that we can improve upon?
Working with the schools, and then I mean, the sirens do maintenance. We do those drills, or they send out the siren alerts every week, but we did have a siren that failed in Woodville that day, so that was unfortunate, but that's being addressed. And we had an emergency management meeting yesterday with the municipalities and talked about how siren maintenance and who monitors and documents, and so we had some discussion around that. That worked out well. That was kind of it. No real big concerns. We did activate, we worked closely with United Way 211, and I did activate them to help just in case that we missed any storm damage or residents that had damage. We use them as a call center to help field calls if we get too much of an influx of calls. And so we work closely with them and then put Red Cross on alert as well. But fortunately, we didn't have to utilize those services. The call center stayed up through the weekend, and we had no calls of further damage after putting out some information to the public. So, yeah.
Supervisor Carlson.
Where I live, I could maybe hear the sirens if I'm outside. If I'm inside, no way.
Yep.
But my phone alerted. I'm only a couple miles from where that happened. Where did that phone alert come from?
The wireless emergency alert system. Yeah, so the sirens we try and do in April, we do a lot of messaging. It's tornado severe weather awareness a week. We do a lot of messaging for a whole week, almost every day. And the tornadoes are not meant to be heard inside. We get a lot of confusion around that with the public, and we always address that every year. But they're meant to be alerted for people who are outside and can hear them to get inside and tune in. The wireless emergency alert, Terry, can you explain that a little bit better with how the National Weather Service? So those, they are triggered when it hits a certain level of warnings.
So Weather Service will push out, similar to an Amber Alert to the public, a wireless alert. A severe thunderstorm warning when it crosses the barrier of 80 miles an hour wind creating structural damage to anything, they'll send out an alert for the polygon. Similar as a tornado warning as well, like you saw. My phone went off here in the government center as well. If you're within that polygon, you will get a alert that there's a tornado warning for that specific polygon if you are inside of it or drive into it during that time.
Yeah, and And one of the things we like to, again, during some of our messaging that we put out is we tell people, turn those wireless emergency alerts on. Some people will just have them disabled when they go to sleep at night. So it's one of the message. I mean, it's not what you normally would think about doing, but I have my phone on Do Not Disturb starting at 10 o'clock at night. So it will not go off if you have those. So turn those on at night, especially if you know a storm's coming, and enable those alerts. So it's because people still, they don't understand about the sirens, and it's just one of the other better ways. Almost everyone has a cell phone now, so it's a good way to be alerted.
Natasha, my final question was going to be, how many incidents like this do we have a year? Not necessarily just tornadoes, but other incidents. Are they fairly minimal?
But we're trending on having far more severe weather events in the last 5 to 10 years. And I'll have to find the stats for you, but we do get a packet from the National Weather Service around that April Severe Weather Awareness Week that gives you all the stats on the tornadoes in the last 50 years, but where we're at in the last 5, 10 years with severe weather events. So I can find that and share that and have it attached. I don't know it offhand, but we are trending on having far more severe weather events than normal in the last 5 to 10 years.
Supervisor Ramberg.
Yeah, in regard to the cell phone, I found that interesting too, because mine, I have on vibrate, and then the sound off because of all the meetings we're
Yep.
in and whatnot, and the volume all the way down, and it still went off.
Yeah.
So that's a great thing to do instead of silencing them, and I appreciated that. When I feel it vibrate so much, I even thought I felt it vibrate in the shower. So that's kind of my age coming. Thank you.
Yeah, and last month was also our NOAA Weather Radio Awareness Day, and so we did put out some messaging around that as well, and I think they're a great asset to have in your home if you don't have one. It's another really good resource. Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for your report today and all the work you folks in emergency management do on our behalf.
Mr. Chair,
Sheriff.
as far as tornadoes, the two that jump out to me, the north side of Hammond in 2005 did some home damage. And there was another one almost through a very similar path, County Road G over in Aaron Prairie Township, that had structural damage of a couple residences as well, probably about 2010 or 2011. And then, of course, that funnel on near 128 and 94 last year. But the ones that have touched down, Terry, am I right? It's probably those three, and right in that center of the county. It must be that jet stream that runs right there. That seems to be the area that they've touched down since I can remember, so.
Thank you for that. If there are no other questions, we'll turn to the administrator to bring us the KIP report on capital improvements relative to public safety departments.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I will tee up the projects, and then the staff can explain them if you have any questions at all. The entire KIP packet, list of projects is in the meeting packet. We'll go over just the highlighted ones. So starting with the first project here, it's law enforcement, it's sheriff's squad vehicles. This is really a recurring KIP item. We buy vehicles on a 3-year rotation basis for patrol purposes. And you can see the dollar amounts increasing. That's because we added so many additional deputies. So when those squads, we did the initial purchase, but when those come up for their first replacement, you're gonna be at that new level. And we also have some inflationary dollars built in there. Every squad is roughly $50,000 by the time you have it equipped. Moving on to the next project then, Project 1056, the first one on the second page, $147,000 for Sheriff Night Vision out in 2029. I can pause on those and either the sheriff can jump in or you can ask a question if you like on it. The next project, 1057, is $40,000 in 2028. It's for the sheriff forensic servers replacement. That one's really recurring on a, I think, a 5-year basis. Every 5 years that comes up. Project 1035, 129,000. This is in next year, in 2026, and that's a squad car tablet replacement.
Does that include software, or is that just, I mean, I'm assuming, but maybe I'm wrong.
Brent says yes.
Yeah, this is probably the hardware cost. The software is probably under a separate line item, but it's owned and it's per device. So you're going to remove one device, you're going to put the new device in, so that'll carry over to the new device. Project 1027, this is a new one being added to the KIP. It's $240,000 for a sheriff patrol boat replacement. If you remember, about 5 years ago, we had a new sheriff's patrol boat, so about a 10-year life on that. Although I think they have 2 boats, they're gonna keep that one as sort of their backup, and this will be the new one.
Yeah, I think that was a 2018
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah. With these sheriff patrol boats, we do get reimbursement from the DNR over a 5-year period. So you spend the money up front and then you get the money back over the following years. Project 1028, $400,000. This will be dash and body camera replacement. So everyone was outfitted currently, and this will be replacement then cost coming up 5 years out from now. The sheriff is really expensive, let me tell you guys. Project 1029, $974,000 in 2027. So this is one piece out of probably a bigger, and I'm sure Terry's going to come up and talk about this, but this will be the mobile radio dual band replacement. So this is one piece of really a bigger project, and I'll touch on what those are. So the line below it is $1.3 million for portable radios. And then if you look down below, I'll try to highlight it here. The $11.6 million, this is emergency communication infrastructure upgrades. These are all related to the 800 megahertz, adding that additional capacity into that higher end range. So you have to, once we upgrade the infrastructure to be able to carry those additional bands, you also have to upgrade all the radio equipment. And they've gotten just ridiculously expensive, but it's part of the cost of doing business if you want to continue operating into the future with the equipment and technological capabilities that are out there and available to us. So I don't know if you wanted to talk any more on that, Terry, since we're on that one. So radios and towers, I mean, you're looking at, $12, $13 million total for that part. Part of the reason we put it into 2027, this was not on the plan last year. We had like the Hammond Tower that was on the plan. We had pieces of it. This is really a bigger revisiting of the scope. Terry will go over that. But we put it into 2027 because if you're going to do the jail project, which we'll get to also, in 2027, we'll do one bond issue instead of multiple bond issues. So every time we do a bond issue like we had done last night or 2 nights ago, I mean, there's $100,000 in fees that we have to pay for that. So instead of doing it twice, you package them together, you do it once, you save yourself $100,000. So. Radios.
Radios. Last month I was here and explained a little bit about it, but I'll paraphrase it down some. So last year we began a long-range plan for communications for the county for the emergency services part. We already had 2 KIP projects between now and 29. One, like Ken had mentioned about replacing the Hammond Tower. We're at a point at the end of 2029 that we had to, our lease was up. So we had to do something or stay there and make some decisions. So there was already a KIP item there that was $2 million.
And then as well in 2028 or 29, I believe, 28, I believe, there was a infrastructure update of the current system, which included refreshing the radios, taking a look and sweeping the antennas and the coax. Lightning is not our friend in our world. So we had to make sure everything was appropriate so everybody could communicate during them situations that they have out there in the field. So that was already a 4.75. Get into the 2030s with the natural end of life of all of our radio consoles in the comm center, that was going to be another $1.2 to $1.5 million project. So that was coming up down the road as well. We would have to address sooner or later. But during the long-range plan, we were reaching out with surveys to the individual agencies, asking them what their wants, what their needs were for the future. The population of our county, we all know, is growing. And by 2044, it's going to grow again exponentially. So with the call volume increasing, the type of calls that we're seeing, as everybody in here knows, they're becoming more and more evident that they need to have communications more out in the field. And I provided the numbers for the number of radios in the system. There's over 1,400 radios in the system for all the disciplines that we deal with in the county that operate on our system. They all cannot be on the radio at the same time on the given channels. So we looked at what we could do to improve the system. Adding one frequency is just over $1.6 million, staying on the VHF band. That's just a Band-Aid because that only gives us one more channel for them to talk on. There's a request from law enforcement to have encryption to protect their staff when they're doing tactical operations out there in the field. There's some individuals that want to take and what they hear on the radio scanner and push that out social media, given a play-by-play update, which also puts them at risk. And the individual, if it's a person having a mental health crisis, they could be listening or watching social media on what they're hearing on the radio, what tactics they're doing. So could harm them in some way or fashion as well. So there's an ask for that. There's an ask from the fire and EMS folks to give them additional channels. So for tactical operations during fire incidents or larger incidents, they can move over and do their operations, but be on a simulcast system that they can hear if they're coming from different areas of the county, but also allow us in the communication center to record them so they can review that afterwards and for training purposes, reflect on what they're hearing, what they did during them operations. So to do all this, in the VHF world, getting additional channels, as I had explained last month, right now we have a pipe, figure it as a 6-inch pipe with water flowing through it at the tip of the antenna on the tower when we transmit. We add more frequencies. The filtering that I have to put on to protect each channel from being clear, the pipe becomes smaller and smaller. So instead of having a 75-watt outbound at the tip of the antenna, we're going to be reduced down to 40 watts. And again, the difficulty of trying to find them frequencies in the VHF band is very difficult to do at this time. And with our neighbors to the west side of the river being a 800 system, and with the state of Wisconsin upgrading their system to an 800 system, it's a lot easier to find frequencies that accept one another for building now and in the future of having frequencies to migrate to that system. So that's how we get to where we are with having a $6 million project. And with talking with Ken, in the long run, I can encompass everything we need to do up through 2035 in this one project, set the county up emergency services wise to have a platform that they can continue to grow on through the 40s and have a safe way of doing it, expanding as they need to with the way the county is continuing to grow. The one aspect of it that Ken hinted on was about the radios, the mobiles and the portables. Everything for the sheriff's office, I shouldn't say everything, a majority of the radios have to be upgraded to dual band. They take care of the VHF band and then as well the 800 band. because we still have to operate with some neighbors that would be VHF yet, but we would also be on the 800 system, be able to go to Minnesota, communicate if Minnesota agencies come over here for mutual aid, but also communicate statewide if we have to go that way anywhere on the state system or work with our state partners. We'd have that link into their system to communicate with them during these growing situations that we seem to find ourselves in. Questions?
Supervisor Rember.
Thank you, Chair. And just to recap also from my recollection, you had 3 different options that were considered, and this is the one we're landing on. Is that correct?
Yeah, we considered, adding 1 channel on the VHF band. We looked at joining the Minnesota Armor system on the 800 band. We looked at the state of Wisconsin joining into their group. And we also looked at Motorola. They presented an option, their WISPN, their Wisconsin, I forget what the acronym is all about, but it was a Motorola system on their own network. And we decided to remain on our own on that band, just so we have more control of it ourselves, and then we can build it as we see fit, as we want to. And as well, I forgot to mention about the highway department. We're bringing along the highway department in this build-out because they have some areas where they have connectivity issues. So we're bringing them along in this move. And as well, will be Tina and her group with her several vehicles that she has. We'll have to bring them along too because they operate on our system when they're needed as well. And there is an option of down the road if the municipality public works down the road, there's an option for them to come into the system as well. So during them events, everybody's on the same band.
Thank you. And along those lines, it's good that we're moving in this direction. We found the option that we want to promote to move forward. I agree with it. And one of the things as we move forward to get this adopted through the whole county board, they're going to want to regurgitate those options and cuss and discuss them again. But in your presentation, it's so great to see that you're showing that we've had those options. We did cuss and discuss them. The subject matter experts were involved, and we all landed on this option. So I think that's important to keep in mind as we go forward, that we keep sharing that we did have options, and especially at the county board or the committee of the whole as we move forward. I know those subjects will probably come up again, and we'll be prepared to answer that quickly. Thank you.
Supervisor Adams.
Thank you. In looking at this list here, all the way at the bottom, it has a line item, $100,000 for the mobile command vehicle refresh, and it talks about wiring. Are all these radios a part of this wiring, or is that a separate cost to add the radios in?
That's a separate cost. In '21, when that vehicle was outfitted, we brought some of the technology from the older vehicle, but put in switches and matrix systems to be able to move if I'm at one position to throw my vision up on a big screen in the vehicle or on the outside for during briefings, that vehicle will be approaching that 10-year mark. So at that time, it's needed to have some of that equipment refreshed to make sure it's reliable down the road.
And then is the MRAP somewhere in here that I'm not seeing? Is that also a part of this comm upgrade somehow?
So all the vehicles, the boat, the MRAP, any tactical vehicles the sheriff's office has, that's included on them 2 line items for mobiles and portables to be included. We went back through the inventory that the captains have of all the radios, and we're making sure that everything is being covered, replaced one for one as needed.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Are there no other questions? Terry, have you completed your presentation?
Yeah.
That was it? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
Yeah, I think the important question for you to consider on that, I mean, we've presented, the basis for a platform that'll be good for the next 20 years then. That's the recommendation that, you know, your staff have for you. So the question is, I mean, on this $13 million piece, these 3 line items, 2027, is that the right timing for you? I mean, all of these things are movable to some degree. We just have to know years in advance so that we know whether we need to be maintaining the stuff we have or if it's going to be replaced, when it's going to be replaced. A lot of planning goes into it. So that's what we're looking for, is some confirmation that timing-wise, we're matching up, because this is going to require a 3/4 vote of the county board at the end of the day to do a $13 million project like this.
For my purposes, I think it is the right timing, because even as we move forward with these types of complicated electronics, and I've worked with the 911 center before, there's something that'll come up that we don't see. And by having it in 2027, I think the opportunity is there. If there is snags moving along the way, we can address them before our equipment fails us.
I had just a general question for the administrator. Could you just review with us the procedural process you anticipate going through with this, starting from now through the end of this year?
Yeah, so the KIP projects right now have been vetted through staff. We have a 5-year recommendation for you. We come to the standing committees this month and go through each of the sections, get some more input from you as the expert committee in this section. We'll then do the committee of the whole in July, at what point we'll use the paddles, we'll vote on the projects, really determine what's going to move forward or not. That'll come back with a formal resolution a couple months later to sort of be one of the bedrock pieces of the budget. The capital part of the budget then is set. So we'll build off of that. So only 2026 projects really, when the budget gets adopted in November, are set in stone. When you adopt the November budget, the 2026 capital projects are locked in. You've authorized us to spend that. Anything from 27 further out is not yet locked in. In 2026, when we repeat this process, the 2027 one is going to be the one that's coming up. So when we get through November of 2026 and these projects get locked in, the capital project part is locked in. The funding part of it then will come back as an authorizing resolution in December of 2026 for a $70 to $75 million bond issue at that point in time. That is a big ask. I understand that's a huge, huge ask for the county board and for the county taxpayers. But that's why I want to make sure that I'm giving you the chance to say no if it's a no, so that we know ahead of time and we can plan for that accordingly. Because we put a lot of things on hold in anticipation that this project is coming down the line. So I just want to make sure that we've had the chance to cuss and discuss it. So that's kind of the timing wise. So between now and December of 2026, that's the final vote, and then I start spending money.
Thank you for that. Any other questions for the administrator?
So I'll finish off the projects then. That was one of the big pieces. So I'll come back then to project 1031. This is the $60,000. This is squad radar unit replacement, 5 years out, as are the next 3. They were all new ones that were added. So $392,000 for taser replacements, $40,000 for a Trimble forensic scanner. Not sure exactly what that is, but they say it's a real thing. $21,000 for cradle points in the squad car replacements. So again, these are maintenance type items, things that end up needing to be replaced so that the sheriff's department can continue to operate. The next big project then, that we've been talking about for a number of years now is the jail expansion and the jail dishwasher replacement. So the jail expansion, I know the chief deputy has presented on that a number of times, and he may or may not want to come up and talk more about it to refresh your memory. But we've been planning that, and that's really doubling the capacity of the jail, creating a lot of additional new cells in the holding area, really redoing the whole intake area, the whole kitchen area. It's a major upgrade to the jail. The jail's lasted us over 30 years now, and this will probably set us up probably for the next 30 years. So again, we're at that point in our history. If you look at all the things we've done with the nursing home, the highway shop, the government center here, a lot of stuff was done 30 years ago, and we're redoing all that, doubling the capacity for all those things again. But then we're going to be good for the next 30 years. So, I mean, the next 30 years of my career, I'm probably not going to have a whole lot to do because everything's going to be done already. But did you want the chief deputy to talk more about that jail project, or have you guys heard enough about it, or where are you at with it in your own thoughts?
What I'm hearing from my colleagues is we're good. However, actually, I was going to kind of blunder through a question to the administrator. I know I personally would benefit from repeatedly hearing the information about its needs, what the options are, how it combines with other big asks in other, yeah, come on forward, Chief Deputy. But I didn't mean necessarily now for anything large, because we're catching you by surprise, but at some point, I'm sure we want to hear some more about that. And I was actually going to ask procedurally, so we don't violate Wisconsin law, is there some way that we can legally meet, perhaps the public, but with the chief deputy, with yourself, with the sheriff, with the jail captain, to discuss some of these things in just, I'll just say, infinite detail, and not just bore everybody to death that might be interested in the audience? Is that possible to do?
Well, I think this is the forum to do that.
Right.
I know it bores everyone else to death, but if it's necessary for you to make that decision, then we want to make sure that you're getting that information. But this is the right forum to do it. So the chief deputy lives some of these numbers. I mean, he tells me them all the time, even when I don't want to hear them. So I'm sure he's happy to share them with you.
Well, and the sheriff and I have been discussing that very issue with Administrator Witt over the last couple of years, actually, is how do we educate the entire board? Our most recent discussions was, well, let's get through this year's budget process, and then in earnest start the education piece for the next year's budget approval. So the sheriff and I fully intend later in the fall, after this committee does the jail tour, of extending the offer to the full county board to have more members come in, to not violate the walking quorum, but invite people over so we can explain the issues and what some of the solutions are. So as far as this year's numbers, we're tracking fairly closely to what the report projections were that I had presented, I think it was last year. So today's population, we're at 118, which is down a little bit from the first part of the year, but we had a high of 139 in February. So once we start hitting that 140, especially 150 mark for our inmate population, that's at the point when we're going to seriously consider housing inmates out of county. Our maximum allowable capacity is 140. Well, according to the state, they recommend you don't go over 80% of your total bed capacity. And in our case, that's 148 inmates. They don't say at that point in time, well, you have to shut your jail down and you can't accept any more inmates. But that's just their general rule to maintain safety and security within the jail.
Supervisor Leaf?
So the 57,600,000, did that, since we're planning so far in advance, does this number account for like inflationary costs and that sort of stuff? Or, you know what I mean? Because if we get to that part and then we
Well,
bond for it,
as you know, the market has been fluctuating a lot in the last couple of years. These numbers were developed at the beginning of the construction process for this building. So the inflationary numbers, and I can't remember if it was a 10% inflationary number or less than that. But it was based on the numbers back then, what they anticipated inflation was going to be. So it's anybody's guess for sure what that percentage rate's going to come in at.
If you look at our old reports, this project started at $30 million. And because of the timing and because of the experience we were seeing with this construction project, that's why that number expanded. The project didn't expand, just the dollar amount, so.
well, I just want to make sure if we're going to plan for it, that we're actually making sure that we cover it.
I mean, that's the other thing, is that whatever project you're gonna do, it was cheapest to build it yesterday. I mean, the longer you put it off, the higher the dollar amount is gonna go.
So, and just like this project, we'll end up having alternatives and options that get marked off the list as we go along, depending on what the budget looks like as we build.
Thank you for that update.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, can I add?
Sheriff.
You know, as we talk about those numbers, the 148, the 184, you guys know going through the facility that that does not represent a cell for each person. That doesn't represent a cell for two people. That's a portion of the numbers. But when you get down to the Huber dorm area, we are housing people in there now that are not Huber inmates. Those are the lowest rated inmates as far as minimum security that are now put in places that in a newer facility, they would not be housed in a dorm style setting. They would still have that. So it's to just throw out the numbers is appropriate, but you guys have seen that the placement, the proper classification, as best we can do with the facility we have, sometimes doesn't meet. We always cross our fingers something doesn't happen in those dorms. But I always want people to really remember that it's not just, well, we just need space. We need proper classification for the inmates that we have. And you guys know that because you've seen that.
Supervisor Hamburg.
And thank you, Mr. Chair. That just hit on something. I remember when we were touring it, the state inspector had talked about that. Is that correct? Could you help remind me of what he had talked about?
Yeah, you saw our large day room area, 24 in a day room, 24 in a day room, 20, 18, 4. That's our separations. And as we move around with the kid that's got a warrant for a traffic, keeping him away from a higher level that's awaiting their sentencing or already sentenced for homicide. As you know, DA Anderson has talked about 10 homicides on the books. Well, we sometimes have to separate and properly place. And those are folks that there's a warrant, they've already gone into the system, or there's a trial already going, or there's a sentence already handed down. But there's some that are in there just on a probable cause. Then you add in there alcohol, drugs, mental health, and trying to separate all of them. And I know that was a large ask years ago that the county board fully supported, but not without some discussion on putting those 9 special needs cells in there. That was just a stopgap. And Supervisor Hanson had it right. Are we spending $9 million now and gonna have to redo it? And ask for this big ask some years later. Well, here we are. That project started 5 days before COVID. It had to shut down. So 2020 is when we started those 9 special needs cells. there was no way, scratch that, it would have been extremely difficult in the last 5 years not to have those special needs cells available to us. I do not know what we would have done. They are consistently full. Just last week, there was a gentleman that filled a milk carton full of fecal matter to throw at one of the jailers. Those individuals need to be properly housed. We also see as new jail cells go in, the bars of jail cells probably aren't the way we'll go. In the new cells, they're actual full doors, so stuff doesn't get thrown out. The guy that's screaming all night, they're not keeping the other 23 awake, which we have. It's construction. Again, it's 30 years old, 33 years old. It has served its purpose, but as we see when we go through, the classifications, the ability to mitigate as much risk and liabilities as possible, and I think that's where we have to look moving forward. So, and again, I know you guys know that because you've been in there, and I think there's a lot of county board members that would be surprised going through there. And I will encourage them as we get through these processes to come along on those tours. And it doesn't need to be 5 at a time. It can be 2 at a time, 1 at a time. Somebody shows up, I want to go through, we're going to make that happen because we want people to feel comfortable in a vote or in a direction that they can defend to their constituents as well.
The Sheriff, I would just say, we'll certainly encourage our colleagues to take advantage of that offer. And speaking of which, I don't have it at my fingertips, but do you know when our next inspection would be scheduled at roughly?
We just talked about that, August. I believe it's August that we will be going through this committee.
Okay. And Supervisor Lee?
I was just going to say, when we went through our last inspection, the population was very high, and you could feel it. And it was, I mean, you can feel it. So I think that it would be great and behoove our other supervisors not on this committee to really engage and have that tour.
County Minister.
Yeah. So again, we're planning this project 2027. It'll be part of that December 2026 bonding authorization resolution that'll take 3/4 of the board vote. The other sort of nuance there that I had mentioned before on the timing was there'll be a reelection of the county board in April of '26. So, I mean, I know that we'll have some new supervisors. All of you will obviously get reelected. But I mean, we'll have some new supervisors in April of '26, and then in December of '26, we're gonna ask them to vote on this project. So.
The education has to be ramped up for
Yeah.
anybody new.
So we want to make sure that you have a good understanding, the senior supervisors that are carrying on, and that you're going to be able to help out your new supervisors to educate them on this project also. Move on from the jail project. All right, let's wrap up the other items. So we have $90,000 a couple years out for the audio log recorder. This comes up periodically, I think every 5 years. Portable radio cache, $100,000 out 5 years. Again, this is a recurring item that comes up in our capital project. The DC battery replacement at the communication towers. These are the backup batteries at the towers. So we're replacing those constantly on a rotating basis. Radio console upgrade, $120,000 a couple years out. Again, recurring item to maintain the communications. $180,000 911 system replacement, 5 years out. Again, a recurring item to maintain the system. UPS replacement for both Hudson and our backup 911 centers. And then, as you had mentioned, that $100,000 mobile command vehicle refresh that we had touched on a little bit before. So that helps extend the life of that vehicle then and maintain the reliability. So we actually have 2 items for the medical examiner, one that's highlighted and the other one's under facilities. We'll jump back up to it. But if you remember, Tina, on our first meeting, she asked for that Stryker Pro Cot. So we got that in the budget then for next year for 2026. So she's super excited about that. See how excited she is? And then the other thing, it didn't get highlighted, but I'll point it out here. So the DD building, it's under facilities instead of the medical examiner. It's $750,000 out in 2029. This was added last year, so it's rolling up a year now, to build out the autopsy suite. And so this is a concept, and I think it was Tina's concept, although Patty might have taken credit for it. But I think it was always Tina's idea. But it's really, instead of sending the bodies into Minnesota for an autopsy, you build out an autopsy suite, and then you bring the forensic pathologist to us and do the autopsies here. And then having that here, we would be able to lease that space out to all the other counties, because everybody in this region of the state is shipping them that way. They're all driving through St. Croix County already, so that would be a closer stop for them. Yep, and it'll help bring some revenue back in. Did I hit all of that, or is there other parts of that, Tina, you want to add?
There we go. Yeah, no, you hit it well. And I mean, when we're talking counties, we're talking at least 10 in this area that bring over to Ramsey. And Ramsey's already at full capacity. Their numbers are extremely high, so it's only a matter of time before they start telling us no. They have to stay under their name requirements. Each pathologist is only able to perform a certain number of autopsies a year, which goes towards their accreditation. If they're over those numbers, they have to cut back. So, and I know that from experience over there. I had to tell multiple counties in Wisconsin no, that we weren't able, they didn't fit our criteria over there. So I want to serve the county, the residents of this county appropriately, and be able to do exams if I feel as though they fit the criteria, not whether they feel it fits the criteria. So, and the other counties are feeling the same strain. So I think it would potentially bring in an immense amount of revenue for our county.
All right, so that wraps it up. So any feedback that you have that you think we do have the plan set correctly, you think this should be moved up, this should be moved back, that idea is a bad idea, we're missing something, any feedback at all that you have, by all means, let me know.
Supervisor Ramberg.
And thank you for that. I can't help but think of how conversations are going to go moving forward at the board's level. And just to regurgitate the big ask, as you say, and I like the point, and that's one of the reasons I brought up the point earlier, is that we're saving quite a bit of money by packaging it. It's just that the package is so darn big. When these schools do that, are they around that same range when they, that's what I'm, yeah, so just, I know it's gonna be a struggle. So if we have a group of the board that wanna bust it up and spread it, some of it out, i.e. the 911 type stuff, so we would need 2 bonding asks, one for the jail and one for the 11,000,006 plus or minus stuff. That would be another 100 and some thousand. Standard fees to process.
Yeah, the fees to process a bond issue or a promissory note sale are fairly fixed. I mean, the attorney, it doesn't matter the size of the issue, the attorney's review of the documents is fixed on the documents, not on the dollar amount that's on the piece of paper. So, I mean, there's portions of it that are incremental, but really it's a fairly narrow range.
Thank you. And what I'm envisioning is the big ask or the Chinese torture question is now you're coming again. Now you're coming again with another request. So that is what I sense moving forward is our public is going to say, okay, now you just did the courthouse. Now you're going to come and bonk, man, that Chinese torture is driving me nuts. That is a factor to have it that many times. which is gonna, the big ask is a big factor too. So that's what I'm torn with, those responses from the public coming that way. Anyway, just some thoughts.
Yeah, and we've done, if you think about all the projects we've done, we've spent a lot of money. But all those projects that we've done from 2016 on, and the mill rate is continuing to go down. And so the county board has done a good job of spreading them out, pacing it, so that we didn't do everything right at the same time or one right after the other one. We're staggering these out to help with that impact. And the way that we've structured the bonds also is they have a declining scale. So when you lay a new one in, it's not a spike up. There is an increase up, but it's more of a curve up. And so we've done everything that we can to mitigate the impact to the taxpayers. But, I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you borrow 70, 75 million, the taxpayers will see an increase, just as they had seen an increase when we did the government center project. But it goes up, and then it settles back down into the range that, people get accustomed to.
And thank you. That's paramount, I think, having that conversation widespread.
Any concluding remarks? Or were those the concluding remarks?
I'm concluded.
Okay. Well, thank you for an excellent presentation, and for those who came in from the other departments to make their comments as well. So we'll wrap up our business items with that then, if there's no further questions. Any requests for future agenda items? Seeing none, any announcements? Seeing none.
Mr. Chair?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I neglected
Sure.
we are doing a retirement little gathering at noon today in the Glenwood Room, which is just above on the second floor, just above the entrance for Captain Anderson. So there will be cake there and in and out. So she'll be happy to see some folks. Thank you.
And that was from 12 to 1 today? Great, thank you. Any other announcements? Seeing none, we'll turn to the date of our next meeting. Date of our next meeting is just before the 4th of July, and I think there's probably a consensus that we not meet that day, if that's correct. And so the thought had been that we still would like to perhaps have a July meeting. Sometimes this room is taken on Thursday mornings, but on July 10th, which is a Thursday, the CJCC is scheduled to meet in this room. And I wish Chief Judge Needham was here, who chairs the CJCC, but he's been with us for 90% of the meeting today. The thought had been that we might meet, at least as a group, if not formally meeting, on July 10th and see what the CJCC does. Several members of the board attend the CJCC board meetings regularly. They're very informative. A number of the people that are in the room now make presentations at that entity regularly, and we kind of concluded that might be educational for us to take part in that. And so does that sound like a reasonable approach to our July meeting? And I'll get back, I'll work with the administrator and Chief Judge Needham to make sure that that's an ongoing meeting and we can maximize our participation or observation in that meeting. And so with that, we'll cancel the July 3rd scheduled meeting and look forward to a July 10th meeting. And then we'll continue on with our regularly scheduled meetings thereafter. So it would be 7 August would be the next meeting that would be like this meeting, and then 4 September. At some point, medical examiner, when she had made her original presentation, we had talked about meeting with Tina up at the DD building. And because of the budget issues that will come up in the early fall, I think we'll probably defer that until we've gotten through our budget issues thoughtfully. But if we could think in terms of perhaps November or December, that might, if that works for you, we'll work closely with you on a good date for that.
That absolutely works.
And so we covered a number of future meeting possibilities there, but I think we have a consensus on that. And so with that, if there's no other business to conduct, we're adjourned. Thank you.